About 5 years ago, I had a wedding that I was invited to that was about a 17-hour drive away. I wanted to save some money, so I decided to drive there instead of flying. At first, my goal was to drive there all in one day, but as I got down there about 14 hours in, I became so sleepy that I couldn't keep going. I knew it would be dangerous for me to try to push through, so I stopped at the next sign I saw for a rest stop. I had no idea where I really was, but it seemed like a very quiet area. When I pulled into the rest stop, I was the only one there. It was dimly lit and had one small building with a bathroom, a few vending machines, and some information flyers. When I stopped, I looked at my phone quickly for hotels, but there weren't really any in the immediate area. The closest one was a 20-minute drive away, and I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open to look at my phone, so I knew I wouldn't make it. I went inside the rest stop and used the bathroom, and then got back in my car and put the seats back. As soon as I did, I immediately fell asleep. I normally wouldn't like sleeping in my car, and I would think it was too uncomfortable, but that's just how tired I was at the time. I was fast asleep until I woke up to something in the middle of the night. I was half asleep, but I thought I heard something. Then I heard it again. It was the sound of somebody trying to open my driver's side door. I moved my chair from laying back to an upright position and looked out the window. I didn't see anything other than the empty parking lot. I had to admit, though, I was a little freaked out. I thought maybe I was imagining things. I sat there for a while longer, but didn't seem to see or hear anybody. So then I laid back down and tried to fall asleep again, but after a few minutes I just had a creepy feeling and couldn't really sleep at all. I looked at my phone and saw that it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I decided I would go into the rest stop and get something to drink, then I would just finish off the drive. I got out of my car and walked inside. They had a coffee vending machine in there, so I got some and then went back to my car. But as I stepped out of the rest stop and saw my car, I could barely see what appeared to be someone hiding underneath the bottom of it. It was dark, but I saw an arm move from behind my tire underneath my car. I went all the way back into the bathroom and locked myself in one of the stalls. There was no other cars in the parking lot, and nobody was inside the rest stop either, which made it all the more creepy. I hoped to wait there for a little while and maybe the person would leave. But the more I sat there and thought about it, the more scared I got. Then I heard the door to the rest stop open and somebody walk in. My heart sank. I picked up my feet off the floor in the bathroom in case whoever it was came inside. I heard them walk around for a bit before getting closer and finally entering the bathroom. As they did, I felt as scared as I ever have been in my life. I quietly grabbed the door to the bathroom stall from the inside. I held it tight as the person walked a little ways into the bathroom and passed my stall to the other ones. Then I heard them start to get on the floor. I figured they were going to look underneath all the stalls to see which one I was in. I decided I needed to make a run for it right then and there. I opened the door as fast as I could and ran out. As soon as I did, I heard them start to get up and chase after me. I made it out of the building and began running for my car. When I was running, I heard the sound of a man screaming in a way that sounded completely insane. I ran back to my car and swung the door open as fast as I could. Then I got inside and locked it. I started the engine and sped away as I saw the man running for me. He looked angry and possibly dangerous. I was able to get away, but that was probably the scariest moment of my life. Last summer, I was driving on a road trip from one side of the country to the other. I was relying on the maps that were built into my phone to take me to my destinations. Usually they worked out great, but on the third day of my trip, very late at night, I was trying to get to my next hotel. I was really out there in the middle of nowhere, and at this point, had mainly just been seeing woods and fields of grass. I also had been having some trouble with the maps on my phone. The signal kept going in and out, and sometimes the destinations would disappear and reappear. At one point, they stopped working completely. Anyways, I had been off the freeway and was driving on a quieter road. I don't know why looking back, but I was still trusting my maps. They told me to turn onto a dirt road that looked like it was going right smack into the middle of the woods. That was the first time I seriously started questioning my maps. That was the first time I seriously started questioning things. I knew sometimes they made mistakes and had errors, but this seemed a little bit crazy. There had to be a better road to drive on than this to get to my destination. As I drove down this road, I started to lose my signal. I tried typing the destination out again to see other routes, but nothing would happen, so I kept driving. There were absolutely no other cars on this road at all, and it was very dark other than the lights from my headlights. I kept going through and figured I would be off the road before long. I would say about 10 minutes into that, I saw the trees moving on the right side of the road as if an animal was in there. I thought maybe a deer was going to run across the road, so I started to slow down. Then I saw a creature jump out from the woods and run alongside of it for a short time before darting back into it. But this creature was like nothing I had ever seen before. It had to be about 20 feet tall and almost as skinny as a stick. It had long, skinny limbs, almost like hair. I literally jumped back in my seat as I saw it and swerved to the other side of the road. When the creature darted back into the woods, it pressed back many tree branches and caused it to look like there had been a strong wind blowing on them. I immediately sped up my car. I was terrified, and I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I wanted to get out of there as quickly as I could. But as I drove my car, it started to sputter as if it was going to die. I had almost a full tank of gas, so I knew that wasn't the problem. The lights in the car started to get dim as well. And this was strange because I had never had problems with it before, and it was fairly new. I saw the ending of the road coming up and a paved road nearby. My car slowed down more and more as I got to it, but finally I was off the dirt road and onto a real one. As soon as my car got back onto the normal road again, it started running just fine. I drove for a bit and the car was completely normal again. Then the signal came back on my phone. I took a couple of more turns and made it back to a freeway. I was able to drive the rest of the trip with no problems. But looking back on that night, I know what I saw, but I have no idea how to explain it. Back when I was in college, I went to a school that was a really long ways from home. Every semester, I would make the long road trip halfway across the country to go to school and get back home. One semester, I was traveling home for the summer. I would often have some pretty late nights on my drives. I would either stop at a hotel or just sleep in my car. On this particular time, it was the second night of my trip and probably around midnight when the gas light on my car went on. I knew I would run out soon, so I stopped at the next exit to look for gas. However, there were no gas stations immediately off the freeway, so I pulled over to the side of the quiet road that I was on and searched gas on my phone. There was a place like 5 miles down the road I was on, so I decided to go there rather than the next place, which was 10 miles down the freeway. I drove down the road and only saw a couple of other cars. Finally, I arrived at the gas station, which was very quiet and a really old-looking place. I got out and filled my tank. And I got back in my car and started to head back towards the freeway. But as I was leaving the parking lot to the gas station, a car came in at a really high speed and almost ran into me. It had to come just about a foot away. It was a really close call. I didn't know why the person was driving so reckless, but I just shook my head and kept driving. Then I noticed in my mirror the car violently turn around in the gas station parking lot and come back around to the road that I was on. The car started to follow me. I drove back maintaining the speed limit, and the car quickly was right on my tail. I wondered what this guy's problem was. I pulled to the side of the road to let him by, but he stayed on me. He followed me all the way back to the freeway. We both got onto the freeway, and he remained behind me for almost 10 minutes. I was getting really creeped out and wasn't sure what to do, but just then, finally, the car suddenly pulled out from behind me and went to pass me on the right side of the road. As it got lined up with me, I looked to see who was driving, but I saw nobody in the car at all. It was completely empty. My jaw dropped when I saw this. The car then sped past me, and I immediately looked at the license plate, but the car didn't have any license plates on at all. I was completely freaked out. I slowed down to let the car get out of my sight. Ever since this has happened, people don't believe me when I tell them the story, and I can't blame them. I probably wouldn't believe it either. Maybe there was some kind of explanation for this, but I know that nobody was in that driver's seat at all.